pass you over to Jen Sumner, who is going to do some preparation for the event. Jen, would you like to take it away?
Thank you, Claire. Hello, everybody. It's really lovely. Thank you for joining us in this strange way. That's first for us, and yeah, we're just getting used to it. So hopefully it'll run smoothly. What we always do at Hubbob, and it helps us, or it certainly helps me, is before anything we do, we take 3 breaths together. The breath is hugely important. It's the basis of human connection. It keeps us alive. So I'm just inviting you to take 3 breaths. You might stay on your chair, or you could stand up if you'd like to. You can use your hands in a small way, or you could do a big breathing in. So we're just together going to connect and settle ourselves and hopefully bring a bit of oxygen into our systems. So we're going to breathe in and breathe out. Breathing in and breathing out. And breathing in and breathing out. Lovely, thank you. Hopefully a little space from whatever other Zooms or things you've been doing. And just, we always prepare our bodies, and so just inviting you to just lean your neck gently to one side and to the middle, and to lean your neck gently to the other side, and to roll your head forward and around and forward and around, and just rolling those shoulders back a little bit, maybe moving some in the spine if you've been sitting down all day, or you've been on the floor looking after children. We're all juggling. Thank you. And just last thing, let's breathe in, and then with a sound, drop that shoulders down, breathing in and down, and in. Thank you. And we're going to this sign. I have the butterfly on my wall for Laura Guthridge, from our actors, who created this sign that we use in Hubbob. It means keep it going. We're going to keep it going. We're very grateful to Arts Council and all other funders for keeping it going, and we hope we can keep this digital sharing going for as long as we need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. So I'm going to introduce the panel in a moment. I just wanted to do some opening words, just to contextualise as well why we're kind of in this digital realm today. So we welcome the news announced yesterday of the formation of a Cultural and Renewal Task Force, chaired by the Secretary of State for Culture. And today, François Matarazzo, in his blog on Parliament of Dreams, has spoken about the road to reconstruction. He proposes that there are 3 possible ways that we could go after this is contained, which is back to normal, to take back control, or to create a new world. And he includes himself in the 3rd group, and I do too. This crisis is, these are his words, this crisis is a chance to make a radical change of direction, aspire to a fairer, less unequal society which values those who do essential work and finds a more sustainable balance with the environment. The importance in this new world would be community, solidarity, and simple kindness in helping us now and prioritising as public services, social enterprise before under tax profit. We hope that this suffering can at least lead to a better society. So all of that he's just in today chimes with me, perhaps chimes with you, certainly chimes with the way in which Hubbob has values. And if you want to refer to your programme that we've sent out, all of our values for the organisation are written in that programme. So I'd like to introduce our lovely panel. So first of all, we have Helen Baggett. Helen, hello, hello. Helen has been movement collaborator on the drum. Helen is Associate Director of Gecko Theatre Company, and we're really delighted that Helen, you've been able to join us today to talk about the drum and the Hubbub Way in more detail with us. So thank you and welcome. Next we have Sarah Brigham. Hello, Sarah. Sarah is CEO and Artistic Director of Derby Theatre and a great supporter of Hubbub, one of Hubbub's key partners, and has also been in the rehearsal room to see the work in action. So thank you for joining us today, Sarah. And just to let you know, Sarah needs to go to another meeting at 2:20, so we'll be saying goodbye to her just slightly before the end of this. Next we have Phil Hargreaves. Hello, Phil. Phil is creative producer for Dada and a freelance producer as well. We're delighted to have Phil today. Phil has a great knowledge of the dance, circus and outdoor sector, and really, really excited about hearing some of your views and comments on Hubbub as a company. Next, we have Izzy Noakes. Hello, Izzy, and welcome. Izzy is an actor trainee with Hubbub Theatre Company, and Izzy is also the assistant stage manager on the drum. So welcome, Izzy. Izzy we're going to see a film that Izzy's made, and also you'll be introducing things along the way in the programme. And finally, we have Jen. Hello, Jen. CEO and Artistic Director of Hubbub Theatre Company, and the person who this work emanates from, and founder of Hubbub Theatre Company. So very excited to hear from Jen and being able to tell you all about the drum and the Hubbub Way. So I think, just let me have a look. Oh, if you want to tweet after the event, please use the hashtag HubbubTheDrum. So that would be great. Thank you. So now I'm going to hand you over to Jen and Izzy.
Thank you, Claire. Izzy, would you like to unmute your speaker when you're ready? Hi.
Hello.
So Izzy and I are going to tell you a little bit about the drum. Izzy, can you tell us what's it about?
The drum is about kindness, and it's about passing on kindness to everybody.
And who is the main character running through this story?
The boy.
And what does this boy wish for?
A drum.
Why?
Because he wants to play the beating that's in his heart.
And so how does this happen? What happens to him?
He starts off like, he passes on kindness, like the bread, a pot, a coat, and then right at the end he gets the musicians, and then the boy gives the musicians a wheel, and then the musicians give the boy a drum.
So he gives away things to other people because they need it more than he does. For everybody in the programme, there's a link to Rachel Gilmore-Jones, one of our actors, telling a really simple version of the story using Makaton that she's learnt from, we all learnt from Emma Jones. So the traditional story is a Hindu story. And as Izzy said, the message is about passing on kindness. And this is shown through the boy on a journey who meets situations, people who need something, and he gives away something that they need more than him, and ultimately he's given a drum. How have we adapted this for the stage? Because this is just a story on a piece of paper. What have we done to begin to make it into a play?
I'm not sure actually.
Have we changed it?
Yes.
How have we changed it?
We've made it made it a bit shorter.
Okay, made the story a bit shorter. Have we changed any of the characters?
Yes.
So could you, what have we changed, for example?
We've changed, obviously, like the different characters, like the old people, how they move, and the props that they use, and also like the different characters, like the boy and the mum. We've also worked on that, changed that a little bit, and then all the different scenes. We've worked on all the different scenes, like the musicians. Obviously, they got like the musical instruments, and then they've got like gonna make like an invitation so they can pass it around the different musicians in the group.
Great, thank you. So we've been moving a lot, haven't we? We haven't used many words. We've been moving and using props for these different characters. The place that we're at the moment is that, you know, this piece is the second piece in a theme of kindness that Hubbub have been working on since 2017, when we began our actor training program. Actually, before that, we'd done some work around the theme of equality and harmony using Japanese stories and Japanese philosophy. And in talking with Helen and Gecko, I realized that we have a thematic pattern, and that was really great to see that we have a thematic pattern. And this period that we're in is the kindness period. And so in 2018 we created the Not So Quiet Revolution of Kindness, which was a street theatre show commissioned for Derby Fest Day. And this piece is a follow-on. It was going to be an indoor touring piece, but we'll talk about that later. And it stems from this traditional story about kindness and generosity. We've been working on in-actor training on a weekly basis with all of the actor trainees. There are now 11 learning disabled actors in that company. And we've had 2 intensive rehearsal periods with Helen, Chris Yarnell from the Outbound Project, Laura Ryder from the B Team, and Ines Sampaio Figueiredo, and I'm sorry if I haven't quite got that right, our wonderful magic music maker who we saw playing at the beginning, and thank you, Ines. So Ines works with us in the room, creating the music as we're creating the piece. We're in creative development. We're finding ideas. We're bringing ideas together in the room. We were due to be in a 3rd week intensive in May, and obviously we haven't been able to. We've continued to work remotely and rehearse remotely, which we'll talk about later, and also made the decision to share a little bit of what we've got. And it's very much draft material here. It's just ideas. We're still in a process. But we wanted to say, you know, this is going on. We're here. Let's start talking about it. And we will return to the final intensive week when we can to complete the creative development process. The piece, as I said, has all of the actors in it, and I'll talk a little bit more how they develop. We've also added in a kind of chorus element, the agents of kindness. So the agents of kindness are roaming. They can roam in venues, they can roam outdoors, they can roam in shopping centres. They're an add-on to the piece. And when we go back into the final stage of research and development, we will reduce the core company of storytellers to I think 6, and then we'll have the roaming agents who will be the carriers of the story and the message and the kindness. So this is where the work, when you watch the videos, you will see all of our actors engaged in generating material and developing character and learning those skills. But that will then go through the next stage of in the 3rd week of development. I will probably hand over in a minute back so that we can watch the film, which will say far more than I'm saying with words. But Izzy, can you just tell us what your new role is and how we've been working with our partners at Deodar and Derby Theatre for your new role?
I've been doing some tech work with Jeff at Deodar on sound and lighting.
Right, and what's your you are a trainee. What's your title?
Assistant or trainee assistant stage manager.
Great. So this is where we're also developing other skills in the company as well as acting, and we've had some great shadowing opportunities at Derby Theatre and support from the tech team at Deidar. So it's been great learning. So I'm going to leave it there because we'll talk more after the film, which will put all of this in context. And I think Carla's going to play screen share. We realized earlier in the screen share, the quality of the video may not be great. So what we can do is also share a YouTube link. So if you're really struggling to watch, you could have a look at the YouTube link and then come back or watch it later on. And it's, yeah.
maybe wanted to talk. I'll be back in about an hour. Natural. I'm just See you at the meeting.
Fantastic. So if we can, we're going to start our first panel discussion on the drum and the idea of inclusive work. So I'd like to start first of all by asking some questions to the panel. I'm going to ask the question and then go to each panel member one at a time. So panel, from most of you have seen or were involved in the live rehearsal process of the drum. What were your observations of the work to date, and what potential development do you see for the piece? And I'm going to ask that first of all to Helen.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to see that film again. I saw it this morning, but Hubbub is such a strong ensemble, and that allows for a really rich creative process. And by rich, I mean that they're in the room, and anyone who has been in the room, there are things coming from everywhere, from many angles, many elements, the music, the design, props, costumes, the story, the themes, images from drawings that the actors have done, and all of those are in this big pot that's shared and to be drawn on. So by that, that's what I mean by a very rich process. It's definitely not just in Jen's head, it's shared by everyone. But the fact that the ensemble is so strong, they know each other so well, I think that means that everyone understands that everyone shares in this exciting process. It's unknown. So it's a really very, it's a really rich devising process. In terms of the development of the piece, I think there's some very funny bits. The funny bits need to get even funnier. The bits that have a real emotional impact, and there are several of those, I think that will be honed so that the audience really feel, the actors have spoken about really wanting to make the audience feel, to connect with the audience. So as Jen mentioned, the roaming agents, that's something that's very unknown, and of course that will be very live. So that element, to work with the performers to empower them and equip them to be able to go out and really improvise, to be live with an audience in outdoor spaces, you know, in off stage, if you like. I think looking at the whole, so the creating of the piece as a whole, so the pacing will happen further down the line. I feel really excited. It's in a really good place.
Fantastic, Helen. Thank you very much for those observations, and yeah, I'm excited too. So let's pass on to Sarah now, if we can. Hello, Sarah.
Hi. Yeah. So I suppose my first reflections would be on when I went into the rehearsal room, and it was such. I'd had quite a tough day. And I came away incredibly happy. That's the first thing I'd say. That's my overriding memory of being in the rehearsal room. Just following on from what Helen said, really, it felt like the company were really focused, really energized, really connected into the story, and the conversations that they were having were quite complex and deep. Yeah, that sense that they really wanted to make me as an audience member laugh, but also wanted to touch me emotionally. And in the short time that I was there, I kind of felt both. And then just watching the video back this morning, and just reflecting, I think that what I would be excited about seeing is you know, you saw it a little bit on that video there, but it being in the room with the live music and how that interacted with the performers, and the physicality of the piece. I would like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that in, you know, in its kind of shiny version in a nice theatre, when we can get into a theatre, or outdoors or wherever it is, and experience it with a group of people. yeah, and I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it both because of the performance. I really enjoyed the performance, but I also felt really privileged to be in that rehearsal room, which felt a really warm, focused, energized rehearsal process, which is all, you know, I work as a director, and that's all you can ever ask for. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thanks, Sarah. That's great. Thank you very much for those thoughts and observations. And I'm glad it made you happy and helped you with your day at the time. So, Jen, do you want to add?
Thank you. Yeah, those reflections are really, really lovely, and that we do, you know, we spend quite a bit of time around well-being and people, for everybody in the room, so that we are present, that we are here in the moment as much as we possibly can, embodied and awake and alert, and that does, you know, keep us energized and working. Thinking about the next stages, I'm excited to still have time with Helen. It's been incredibly valuable, and also with Chris and Dinesh and Laura as outside artists that come in and bring so much to us. We are also sharing with them how we work with our learning disabled actors, and how I was talking to Helen about it. For me, the magic starts to happen really when we've built this material, we're refining the material, but then to really find the synergy, the place where we really, as an ensemble, performers are settling together. That's where this integration really happens, and the space in between, which is a key interest of mine. And we one of our first conferences was the space in between. What happens in that space in between the actors, in between the sounds and the music, that where we feel it. And that's, I mean, again, we're still in R&D, but we're sharing our practice and learning all the time. And then the other element of the work that we were threading through the next stage, so there's the story of giving and sharing. There's the story of the boy who needs to individuate, to grow up, to go on his hero's journey, to help others, and to grow into a young man. And that relationship that he's working out with himself and his mom. That I'm excited about that, and also the layer that of well-being. We were looking at Human Givens, which is a wonderful tool about what we all need as humans in order to be well and to feel alive in ourselves. And the story reflects many needs, human needs. A homeless man who needs a coat, a mom who needs some food for her baby, old people who can't afford to heat, they can't light their fire. So we have contextualized that also within our current society, in austerity, and we've been researching about how this piece is relevant in I'm probably jumping to the next question, is relevant, but those are layers I'm excited to explore. And at the end, the scene where you saw people dancing, that the end of the piece is a party. It's a community party, and where we've also run workshops in the community already, where we've gathered ideas. And Nikki Charlesworth, who I know is with us today, has done a bunting workshop. And so we're looking again at the community element. It's not an add-on for us. It feeds completely into the process. Our workshops feed our creative process. So obviously we've had to change and adapt that and cut that short, but how we integrate people into what we're making, and we listen to them, and then how this piece, where will it go? You know, that's all exciting. I can't wait to get going again.
Great. Well, thank you, Jen. And absolutely, I think that the community element is definitely what's needed in today's new reality or new world.
Sorry, Claire, could I just add one thing, which is also Maria Terry has been designing. We've worked with Maria quite a lot, and again, she's here today. We were going to include an element of the design, which is fantastic, in today's event, but there's just so much to talk about. So Maria adapts and works as well, and is responsive to the company and to the actors and to everything happening. So we're going to run also an event around how she's working on her designs, but I just wanted to give her a big shout out.
That's great. That's fun. And thank you, Maria. So I'm just going to go on to the next question for the panel. And Jen's already started to kind of open up that discussion point, which is about the relevance of the drum, especially in our new reality, and perhaps in a way that the drum can reflect some of the things around creating a new world that we all want to be in, and a society that we value everybody in and everybody is equal. So I'm going to ask Helen if you would like to comment on that, please.
Absolutely. I would just say that word community again, but also add another word, connection. I think this crisis has highlighted or put a spotlight on how we connect. Obviously we're now connecting in new ways, but how important that is. And again, echoing Jen mentioning the human needs that we've been looking at, there's a sort of underlying theme in the drum, but the emotional connection is we need it as we need shelter, food, we need community, and we need connection. And I think there is a thematic thing with the piece, but also what I can imagine, when the drum goes out to wherever it goes out, that's how it connects to an audience, and how the audience reflect on that, I think is incredibly important. I think it also echoes that question of who gets to do theatre, who gets to be on stages, and it's pushing that, and that's vital.
Thank you, Helen. That's great. And Sarah, would you like to add your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I won't repeat anything because I'm in complete agreement in terms of the thematics, but I would just say again, just kind of following on from Helen's last point, really, that what we need to see in theatre and what we haven't seen enough is our society and our community represented, and to hear the stories that they want to tell. And that goes for all sections of our community, and we need to be, just exactly what's been said, really, that we need to experience that in our theatre because it's a reflection of our life. And so to me, that's really exciting. And the combination of non-learning disabled and learning disabled actors, I think, is a really exciting combination, because that's reality. That's our lives every day. So we should be seeing that represented. And I think, we are, in terms of the other side of it, which the training side that people like Izzy are doing on the technical side, is even more crucial, because our industry, those jobs are very, given to the very privileged few, and we need, again, a diversity of people engaging in those practices, because then that will push us as venues and organisations to be better and to be more inclusive. So I think it's incredibly relevant, and I think it comes at a time, hopefully, as you said at the beginning when you were talking about Francois's blog, it comes at a time maybe when we've got an opportunity to think about creating a fairer, a more open society. So yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. That's great. Thank you very much. And Phil, would you like to add your comments?
Yeah, very much connecting with what the other panelists have said about community and connection, and that real need now in society to have those connections. But there's also something that, I've been working on a project with an artist called Dan Daw, who has been talking massively about this whole prospect of taking up space, and marginalised voices and unheard voices having the power to take up space unapologetically. And I think that's one of the real relevance of what we're talking about here, those small acts of kindness where, that we've added that are so relevant to the current society in this work, are all real powerful moments of people taking up space and stories that need to be told and heard. So I think it's very, very relevant now. It will be relevant in 6 months, and potentially could be even more relevant in 12 months' time. For sure.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much. And finally, Jen, would you like to add anything? around relevance?
I mean, again, I don't want to repeat, and I completely agree. And I just hope that this is a period where we can seize the opportunity. And you know, we're working with our Hubbub actors. We have community groups and outreach, and we go out to schools, and we're looking to meet people earlier in their lives, to bring people into opportunity, to find opportunity early on, and to, you know, increase representation across all the creative possibilities, whether it's being a performer or backstage or learning to present. So it's yeah, it's something. It's key. It's core to everything we do, and the world now is shouting kindness out the windows, and this is what we do. It's what we've always done, and I just really hope that we can move on positively in this new reality.
Thank you very much, everybody. So I'm just moving on to the next question. This is for Sarah, Phil and Helen. What have you noticed about the change in Hubbub and their work over the last 5 years, or the time that you've known Hubbub? And what's the value of this in the city of Derby, in which we're the company are based, the region, and the UK arts sector? So Sarah, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I suppose what I've noticed about Hubbub over the last 5 years is a real professionalisation, if that's such a word. Like they've become more, they've just become more focused, more vision driven. It's really clear what their ambitions are, and where they want to position themselves from a kind of industry perspective. And I think it's really important because there is a real gap in this area, I think. So it was really timely that Hubbub came along when they did, because I would say that they're the first people I would go to in terms of talking about integrated practice within the East Midlands area. So yeah, so I'm delighted that they're kind of here and thriving, and anything we can do to support that more, we will do.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great. Thank you very much. And Phil, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen quite a growth in the artistic output for Hubbub over the years. Their connection to Feste, you know, the project that started 2 years ago, the One Moon project, into, you know, the drum project that's developing now. There's been like a real step change, I would call it, in how the artistic practice is looked at in terms of what the delivery is going to be. So you know, what the end outcomes, the you know, the value and quality of the work and ambition of the work is much bigger, basically, which is really exciting. And I'm glad that they're in, you know, the data building, you know, just having conversations and connections with Jen, even relating to some of our programs, is super important and relevant. And, you know, Jen has played a major part in helping us understand the wider needs of our audiences, to make sure that we can actually continue to connect with people who are outside the usual normal people who we would expect to come into our building, and people who we will want to reach, and communities that we'd want to get to. So it's amazing to have them in the building physically.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, when we can eventually get back in there.
Yeah, we can get back in there. Great. And Helen, yes, Helen, over to you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, in the time, I guess it's a couple of years that I've been playing with Hubbub, I have really seen an increase in the performers' skills, in their physical skills, in their willingness to take risks, to be bold. So I suppose in their theatre skills, also the creative enablers. I mean, they have really, I have seen them really grow. Also, for Jen, I think I've written 3 words: confidence, ambition, and artistic voice. I feel like, Jen, for you, kind of holding it, you have really begun to clarify, and you had a strong artistic voice, but within the context of Hubbub and how Hubbub as a company developing, you are developing that confidence and practice and boldness, which is really exciting to be alongside.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody, for those comments. It's just absolutely brilliant to hear your views. And just finally, we're going to have last few questions. We've touched on it already, but it's very important to put a spotlight on the sort of inclusion aspects of our work. And we want to be able to ensure that people who are marginalised, including learning disabled artists and communities, are not further marginalised in the new reality which we're living with now. So I'm going to ask the panel, I'm going to ask Sarah first, then Phil, then Jen, to just have some thoughts on that, please, to share with everybody. So Sarah, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that our only is about how much power do you have, and you can only influence the things around you. And so for me, the things I can influence are the theatre world, and then hopefully that has wider implications, and then that knocks on, and eventually governments listen, and all of those things. And I do think that that's how the world works. And I suppose the way that we do it in the theatre is by listening to companies like Hubbub and ensuring that we're really listening. I think it's really easy, especially with someone like me who runs a big venue, is to sit and not really engage in the discourse, to not really understand and listen when you're not doing things well enough. And I think that's been really great having Jen in the city, because she can really challenge, she and Hubbub and the actors can really challenge us in what we're doing. And I really welcome that challenge, and I think we need to make sure that others do too. I also think that, Arts Council have launched a brilliant, I think, strategy over the next 10 years, Let's Create. And within that, there's a real clear call to arms, call to action, in terms of making our practice more inclusive, and making sure that we open up worlds to people who maybe previously haven't had the opportunity to. And so I think it is being heard at those kind of top levels. And I think that's what we need to do. We just need to keep focusing on that and ensuring that companies like Hubbub thrive. And there would, in an ideal world, there would be 5 Hubbubs in the city, not just one. That's what we should be aiming to work at. We should be actually thinking, well, what Hubbub's doing is great. Where there's more demand. Where how do we make more, not less? And how do Hubbub not remain isolated? How do they integrate into my practice and into the work that I'm doing as well, and me into theirs? So that's the way I see it.
Fantastic, thanks, Sarah. And the work that Jen has been leading on the Hubbub Way is kind of part answer to that. How can Jen support your practice as well? So there's more of that in a moment. So Sarah, if we don't get a chance to say goodbye to you, thank you ever so much for taking part today. Are you okay? Do you want to add anything more before I go to the other panel members?
No, only that I'm going on to have a big conversation with our city council about the future. So I will take all of this with me.
Thank you.
The only reason I'm leaving early, otherwise I'd stay here. But I'll stay for a couple more minutes, and I'll duck out quietly in a minute.
Great, thanks, Sarah. So Phil, would you like to share your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what Sarah said, and that there is an element that I can only influence a certain section of the world in the work that I do, but in being in a slightly privileged position, I can open up space and time to allow those really relevant and needed voices to be allowed to come through, such as Hubbub's, and just being able to support projects like the Drum and place programs of work that they've done in Festi. If we could read you know, there was a really weird comment that came through Festay's Facebook page about a drag show that we had on, you know, previously, that it absolutely baffled me as a person who lives in such who comes from a city that people would class as, you know, very diverse but quite rough and ready. And then I read this comment and I was just like, what is this comment about? And it was about this drag show, and I just thought, wow, we need to, you know, this festival and our programs have to create more space for people to come through to shout about these great voices that are unheard. And I think that's the only way I can be of some sort of help at the moment and provide the right spaces for the advocacy to really push through.
Thanks, Phil. That's great. That's great news. Thank you. And finally, Jen, would you like to talk about our question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm finding that really, I feel really full from that response, and really empowered to keep doing this work. It's, as Sarah said, it's a complex world, and you know, the situation for many learning disabled people who aren't lucky enough to live with their own families is really critical at the moment. And I'm not going to go there right now because we're going to talk about this, but it needs to, that is very much in my mind as well. People who are vulnerable and are not getting what they need. But at the same time, what we can do as a company is to keep our message strong. And I feel that there's a shift, that we've had this support from Arts Council through Elevate and ongoingly, and through the city and the partners in the City Council and the county, that's saying, yes, we want your voice, we want you to be here, we want to hear your actors. Our actors, our Hubbub company are amazing. Some of them have been with me since it was just an idea, and we formed it together, and everything we've done has been together. And I just, yeah, I feel supported more by them than it has been in the past, and that's really encouraging. It's not an easy journey, and we will carry on and keep connected to as many people as we possibly can. And that when you're talking about people who have more complex needs and disabilities, health conditions, there's a lot to consider, but there's also some things that we've learned about this remote delivery that could also hopefully maintain connection with more people. And again, I think we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thank you. And thank you to all our panel members. So I'm just going to introduce the Hubbub Way documentary, or I'm going to ask Jen to do that actually.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll pass back to you, Jen, to introduce the next piece of footage.
Great. Okay, I'm going to do this briefly so I can gather myself whilst the film's on. The Hubbub Way is evolved essentially through the work I've done as a theatre maker, deviser, teacher, and particularly drama and movement therapist. And then I went on also and worked with Maison Food, devising their Memoirs of a Biscuit Tin and that practice. So it's all of lots of different experience, and working with people, children, young people and adults with learning disabilities. It's an intuitive process, and so it's what we're trying to do now, and Helen is an incredible support in this. What we're trying to do is find the words to articulate and frame a process that is intuitive and based in ritual and based in repetition and structure and routine, with a lot of flexibility in the middle, is to actually unpick and say, okay, this is what's going on. Let's find the words to articulate that. And also, you know, for training, for facilitators, this is for theatre makers, as people are looking to be more inclusive and more integrated in their work, we need to find a way to talk about it. So we're working on a documentary, and also I will be writing a brochure and illustrating that visually, photographs, diagrams and things accessibly, hopefully. This film is a taste of, it really isn't complete. We will be going back into this, defining the Hubbub Way, but it's the beginnings of just a flavour of what it's about. So yeah, we'll go over to the film. Hopefully. And breathe out.
Hubbub Theatre Company is an integrated ensemble of actors with and without learning disabilities. We create original, physical, visual theatre for indoor and outdoor performance. The Hubbub Way is our way of working with our integrated ensemble in our actor training, in the rehearsal room process, and also in our devising process to create our physical theatre pieces. What that means is that we have refined a process in which learning disabled adults can access actor training and be an equal part of a devising and creative process.
I've been coming up to work with Hubbub alongside Jen and the performers. I've been feeding into the actor training, and now we're entering a phase of R&D, so research and development, leading towards a production. There are lots of parallels with the way that I work and Gecko work in terms of training and devising movement that comes from the body. So it comes from the performers, it comes from who is in the room, it is devised together, and it comes from a physical starting point using breath and physicality to create stories, human stories.
Use your whole bodies, use your hands, use your elbows, use your ears, look!
Integration is at the heart of what we do and how we work, because we believe that people don't fit into boxes, we don't live separately. Learning disabled people and non-disabled people exist as human beings in this world, and so our aim is to work together collaboratively, learning from each other, celebrating our differences in all of the work we do, and we feel that that's more representative of the society that we live in.
Lovely idea, thank you. Here we go. Keep going, and maybe you find someone to communicate.
The Hubbub Way begins with preparation, and it's preparation of the space that we're working in, and also preparation for the actors so that they're ready. That begins in the room, that we make sure that we have a clear, clean, bright, warm space that's not going to be interrupted. And then we have a process that we go throughout the day to ensure that everybody is present, feels good, available, and ready to work. In the process, we feel it's really important to give time and space to preparing ourselves physically and emotionally and mentally for the work. That begins by arriving in the room, where we create an environment that is primarily non-verbal. We leave the chitter-chatter outside, and we bring ourselves together in a circle and begin by connecting through breath.
Let's breathe in. And breathe out.
We then prepare our bodies by stretching, and this is again a non-verbal process where there's a lessening of information so that people's brains can relax. We can not have to process verbal information, and that people are following with their bodies in a quiet environment, which music supports, to let us settle and to be present together. We then bring our attention out of ourselves and our own bodies into working with partners and other people, warming up different body parts so that we're ready to explore physically, but also bringing our focus quite acutely to other people, where we begin to mirror and reflect and attune to others. So through the physical exercise and the movement exercises, we energize and we feel alive and ready for the work. Through throughout the Hubbub Way, the process of the day, we will come back from time to time to the breath and the body in order to refocus, to reset, to bring ourselves back to where we need to be in order to take the next steps in the work. And that's a really useful tool, just to bring everybody back together and say, here we are, let's carry on. Let's carry on.
I think it's slow and a little hurting.
Yes, so that, absolutely. Can we all try that? That's a wonderful word, hurting, when you're sort of feeling that inside, that you're hurting and your body, maybe it tries to protect you a bit.
As we work, we invite contributions and offerings from everybody in the room. Exercises are set and offerings come in many different forms. They may come through movement, they may come through discussion, they may come through drawings that are done later on in reflections. And so for us as the facilitators of this process in the room, it demands an acute level of observation in order to extract and bring to life some of the ideas that are expressed in a non-verbal form.
I've observed that in the Hubbub way, in the Hubbub sort of practice and weekly process, there is a real sense of ownership and of shared leadership. Yesterday I was leading a section and Jen was leading a section, and within that, when offers are made, that's what we want. We are wanting there to be offers from the performers. What do you think about that? There's an idea, and we're using those ideas, and that's very important. It's very important that the company feel that they are devising performers. Some offers from the room in that devising hour might be verbal. Some offers might be something that someone did a few weeks ago in an improvisation that we've filmed and watched and remembered. Other offers might be in a drawing, but that is really happening in the room, and that's what that so much work has gone into over the past few years. That the quality of the process is really high.
Look. At Hubbub we have a skilled team of creative enablers, and they play a key role in the devising and working process. The creative enabler works as a support for communication, a support for access, and a way to ensure that our actors, and particularly those who are less verbal, are accessing the work, understanding the work, and able to respond from their own place of integrity. The creative enablers will work alongside physically. They will sometimes interpret some instructions into simple English or accessible English, which can be really valuable when we have visiting artists in the room. And they help to support the facilitating environment in which all of our learning disabled artists can thrive. At the end of a training session or rehearsal, we will also non-verbally check out with all of the actors through sound and movement, which is really informative, and to make sure that everybody is back in the room, grounded, feeling okay. And we may also then use some stamping or body rhythms to reconnect as a group and to bring that ritual of the workshop rehearsal to a close. And so we go back out into the everyday world.
Love it. It's great fun. Playing, exploring, creating. You know, I think it's very exciting what's going to happen for Hubbub.
Fantastic. That's absolutely great. And I'm gonna ask Jen and Helen just to add about how it all developed. What was the kind of initial idea behind the Hubbub Way?
Yeah.
Helen, Jen, do you want to go first?
That's great. Thank you. So just before I talk about the Hubbub Way, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Adam Robertson from Film City, who has been working with us for a number of years now, but has pulled together these films for our digital sharing, you know, working in this strange way. So thank you so much, Adam. I think he's here. We call him the sort of ninja. Because he just arrives and films in a way that doesn't disrupt and just captures these moments. So a massive thanks to you and to all of the team. The Hubbub Way, as I mentioned earlier, is grown out of my work, which has been in the community and as a teacher and as a performer, a theatre maker, with a whole range of people, young people, children, and then beginning to be more in special needs settings. And then I did my first work with a learning disabled group. It just popped up on Facebook 10 years ago, first adult organisation pursuing independent paths in London, who were amazing, and they became a theatre company, and we performed at the Gate in Notting Hill. And I thought, this is incredible. We did a non-verbal version of Romeo and Juliet, and it brought grown men to tears who would come to watch it, and we'd be like, something's going on, something's magic. What is it? What's this magic? And we've been exploring that with Hubbub in the East Midlands. So since being in Derby, it's brought my practice into focus and having the opportunity to work solely now with Hubbub, thanks to the Elevate funding we've got. It's given me time to really think, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And then in terms of the Hubbub Way, there's a lot of roots from my drama and movement therapy background, the Sesame approach, which I did at Central. There's a lot there about non-verbal communication, storytelling, creating a facilitating environment, a safe space, ways in which people can be allowed to flow with their own energy and integrity and have a voice, but also be focused on creating some theatre. And this was all happening, and again, throughout the process with our actor training and our Launchpad event, we were trying to articulate it. And then conversations with Helen, and particularly going to see The Wedding, which was mentioned earlier, Gecko's incredible show at Derby Theatre, and Hubbub were on the front row, and we were just soaking it up and taking all those rhythms from the end. And if you haven't seen it and you ever can, then just do. And we were so excited about that. And then at the end, the artistic director and performer, Amit, was talking about his process, and I thought, that's so similar to how I work. And yet I've been struggling with different directing models and how a director is seen, and that process of creating the space. And as Helen, I've taken this word from Gecko, the offerings that are made and the versions of things that are made. All of this really began to support the structure and the articulation of actually making theatre, and that's sort of where we're at. And that video still shows a lot of the preparation, but now we're how do we work? How do we communicate? How do we move this process into quality performance? And we've, I could talk for ages, but I'm going to write an article and make a film. But we lots of different things embodied, and I've just brought this out because this pictures and words and deconstructing scenes into key moments, and Tom's drawing that began the process of exploring what the Shivering Man was and how we were going to do it. So it feels an exciting time to demonstrate everything that's going on in the room. It's so many different levels, and with our amazing creative enablers, Maddie and Emily and our artists all tuning in and working, and this is where we are.
Great. Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you so much. And Helen, I'm going to come to you now, and I also want you to, if you could give us an idea of what you think potential is in the Hubbub Way. Oh, you're on mute, I think.
Unmute. Is that better?
That's better.
Yeah, I think huge and very exciting potential. I think very quickly when I was in the room with Hubbub, and what's beginning to happen with the Hubbub Way, for me, I've written robust methodology. It's a process that works. So it's a process which is strong, but it's flexible. So it allows, and as Jen says, it, you know, creating an environment in which magic can happen. So the process, it really works. Jen is testing it, and the guys are testing it, but it works. It works to create that environment, and at the moment it's working towards making a piece of theatre. So that's kind of shifting. But I think as a model of leadership is really exciting, of how there can be a shared leadership within a creative process. I think it has real importance in terms of training, vocational training for actors, for dancers, for directors. I think it has potential for performers, for companies, for, you know, people and again it goes back to this question of who is on our stages, you know, to have something that is accessible and also that is pushing towards excellence. I think it's really, it works. So I think huge potential. I think the process is a process of lots of yeses. That's what Jen and I have often said. You know, we saw these parallels between the way that Hubbub work and the way that Gecko works, or the way that Amit, who is the artistic director of Gecko, the way that he makes work with the company, but also the way that all of the Gecko performers, some of whom are here, hello, work and facilitate and make work, which is a version of a structured process, which is there are real parallels between our process and the Hubbub way. So I think for me, what's exciting is that it works. It really works. It works towards making great theatre, but it also works towards that feeling, and I think it was mentioned early on, of what a great room. It creates a great room. It creates a great experience, and that is obvious in a way, but I think it's vital that every person in the room feels heard, feels empowered, feels important, and feels part of a process. And that, from the off, I saw that in Hubbub happening in the room.
Thank you, Helen. That's great. Thank you so much. Phil, I'm just going to come to you quickly. I'm just conscious of time, and we want to get everything in. What do you see the potential of the Hubbub way as?
Yeah, I think it's got masses of potential. I think Jen has been clearly developing this for a considerable amount of time, and I think what the next step I would like to see from Hubbub is some form of, like that short video was possibly one of the first formalizations of that way that I've managed to get in on as an outsider, to be able to go, oh, okay, that's super interesting. I'm down with this. I get that process. That's fun. And to kind of take that step further, to look at that more, to challenge the organization to enable Jen to keep that structure but have it as fluid as possible, so it can continue to adapt to the needs of the participants and training programs, but also the people that Hubbub work with Hubbub for quite an extensive period of time. So what's the level of rigor that needs to be added to that next layer about the people who are picking up this learning? Because people who are picking it up and being embodied with it, with Hubbub for such a long time, can really deliver that in such a way. But then what happens when that process leaves and people start to then not dilute, take that process elsewhere? And I think having this real solid, here's Hubbub's way, here's some documentation and videos, and maybe collaboration with a university or somebody to talk about that, that elevation of that again is a real exciting next step for that process. And I think it's got really great legs. It could open up lots of learning opportunities for a broad range of people who even people who don't conform to the learning ways of school structures and other structures of learning.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Phil. That's a great perspective on the Hubbub way.
It wasn't sorry.
I'm just going to move on to the final question here, and this is to Jen and to Izzy. obviously we've had to adapt because you've not been able to be in the same room as each other physically. How has rehearsing changed and adapted because of this crisis and situation that we're in? And how have you been reached by the way that we've adapted? Yeah, that's to Jen and to Izzy.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Izzy, would you like to tell us about that? Let me see if I can see Izzy. Great. So, since we haven't been going to Deydar, what have we been doing?
We have been doing Hubbub at home via Zoom.
Okay, and have you ever done Zoom before?
No, first time.
So you've learnt quite a lot of new things. What else happens? Do we do everything on Zoom?
No, we do things on Zoom, but we also do like phone calls as well.
Phone calls, and then after you've had your Zoom workshop, what might you do later on in the week or in the afternoon?
Do the tasks that Jen has set for the actors to do.
Okay, and how is it working at home?
It's different. It's not the same as being at Deydar, seeing everybody like face to face. But yeah, I've got used to it.
You've done really well. Everybody's done really well. And has it helped you through this strange time?
Yes, it's helped me a lot. Because if we didn't do Hubbub at home on Zoom, I would have been like really bored. I would have got really fed up. Would have got like really sad and depressed. But now I'm doing like Hubbub at home via Zoom. I can see everybody. I can stay connected to all my Hubbub friends, like to Jen, Laura, Emily, and the rest of the team.
That's great, Izzy. Really well done. And we've adapted quite quickly to the Hubbub at home, thanks to Simon and Carla working with us at the moment, co-producers, and their digital savvy, which I was terrified of. Just went, we're doing it. And so we went through a process of videos and then Zoom tutorials, and our amazing team, Laura Ryder and Ines and Emily and Maddie and Nikki, were delivering actor training and the Hub online. And the biggest thanks really goes to the families, because they have become creative enablers. Most of our participants, not all, have somebody in their home that can support them to do that. Where that's not happening, we've got additional communications going on and supporting the best we can, but we have got 100% uptake. And again, a huge gratitude to the Arts Council for the emergency fund and other funders, Derbyshire Foundation of Derbyshire and others who are supporting that. We've also reached out. We were in the middle of our community workshops with the drum. We created an online version, and we've shared that through those networks, and we'll also be delivering to This Is Derby, the Reimagine, the next stage. We'll be delivering some workshops for schools. So we're trying to share and keep connected. And actually in the long run, we want to be back in person, obviously, but we have seen there's potential for us. When people can't access us, we might be able to access them in different ways. So there's real value in this digital learning as well.
Fantastic, that's great. Thanks, Jen. And I think that you've got a challenge for us.
We have. So our agents of kindness are at work and everywhere these days, with small acts of kindness. Kindness is power. So I asked Izzy to make a video, and I had no idea how amazing the video would be. So we're going to share that with you and set you the challenge of becoming an agent of kindness. We will create more badges. I am an agent of kindness. To go out and to do something for somebody else, or to give something to somebody else because they need it more than you do. And if you'd like to, you could take a photo and share it on our social media or send it to us. We'd really love that. So I'm going to say, hand over to Izzy's video now.
A kind Kindness a day keeps the sadness away. K. Kindness makes the world go round and helps to make it a better place. I. If you do an act of kindness, it will make you feel alive, happy and proud. N. Notice the things around you and see if anything is needed. D. Do something nice like bake a cake for someone or pick up some litter. N. Never forget to say thank you for everything you've been given. E. Every now and then stop to think if someone needs your help. S. Smile at someone. It doesn't cost anything. It can make their day brighter. S. Show someone you care. Make them a cup of tea.
Be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Ain't got no place to lay your head. Somebody came and took your bed. Don't worry. Be happy. The landlord say your rent is late. He may have to litigate. Don't worry. Be happy.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jen and Izzy. And Izzy, that film's absolutely inspiring, and it's a brilliant job. Well done. It's amazing. In fact, when I watched it this morning, I went straight downstairs and I put the kettle on and made my family a cup of tea. So you inspired me straight away. So thank you so much. And I just wanted to just before we close, just to see if any of the panel have any final thoughts that they would like to share before we just go into our final section. Helen, would you like to share anything?
Big thank you. I'm really, really excited. I mean, I would echo what Jen said, her thanks to the funders that have allowed Hubbub. I think what's amazing is how they squeeze value out of everything. You know, it's amazing how they've adapted to this situation, and really exciting to see the Hubbub journey. There's another film, the Hubbub journey. Yeah, really exciting.
Fantastic, thanks, Helen. Phil, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would like to, just encourage Jen and the team and everyone surrounding the Hubbub organisation to continue to be ambitious and to continue to push for, power and space, and unapologetically be in those spaces, because without that, we can't change, we can't help the change either, and we need, we want to share that with everybody. We want to be able to open up space and be able to do that. So that's what I would ask, that's what I'm taking away. And also, it's been a great adaptation. You've adapted really quickly, really swiftly to the current climate, and it's credit to the team for doing that. So well done, everyone.
Thanks, Phil. That's great. Izzy, would you like to share any final thoughts?
I just want to say that I think what people have said, I've taken on board, and I've heard everything, and it's really good.
Great, thank you so much, Izzy, and thank you for being a part of this today. Jen, I'm just gonna give a final word for you. Jen, you're on mute. Are you?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Sorry.
Right, don't worry.
Just acknowledgement of everybody that has helped us adapt. I do feel very proud of Hubbub at Home and what we've done. The people who make this work and the people who are Hubbub are the actors. And I just want a big shout out to you all. You're fantastic. We've got Izzy on the panel here. We've got Anna and Amy and Laura, and Bethany and Rob and Barrett and Tom and Rachel, and I'm just hoping I'm not forgetting anybody. And that's just, I'm so impressed and just overwhelmed by your capacity to create and your drive, your energy, but also to manage this situation. And just thank you. You are Hubbub.
That's great, thank you. That's a wonderful final word, Jen. So I'm just going to wrap the event up now, and to say thank you once again to the panel. You've been brilliant. You know, your openness and presence and sense of presence today has made this a very rich event, and hopefully everybody's experienced that in the way that I have as well. Your chat that's been recorded, we will follow up on that, so thank you people for everybody who's contributed to the chat. Thanks to Simon and Carla behind the scenes making it all work technically. You've done a wonderful job, and also in the preparation for the event. I'd like to thank our funders, formally Arts Council England, Derby City Council, Garfield Weston Foundation, Foundation Derbyshire, the Edward Gosling Foundation, D'Oyly Carte Charitable Trust, the Austin and Hope Pilkington Trust, and Forbes Foundation, and Partners Derby Theatre and Ada. Without you, we would not be able to carry on in the way we are and keep it going. Thanks very much to the Hubbub team. Again, I echo Jen's thanks to the families that are facilitating the work to carry on and at home, and the carers in this very, very testing time. And we will be following up on this event with further events. We have other things planned that we will share with you. So please join us again in the next events, and we'll be emailing things out to you following this event that are links to help you stay connected with the progress and development of the Hubbub Way, the Drum, and Hubbub at Home. So I am going to hand over finally to Ines in Portugal, who's going to play us out. Ines, are you there?
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Or do you want me to leave you with an earworm?
Oh,
earworm.
An earworm, yes. I think a song would be great.
I will leave you with a little excerpt, is that a word? I think that's how it works, of our song from the Drum, and I'll teach you the Makaton for it. So the words are, you need it more than I. Do it with me. You need it more than I. So I'll sing it once and then you can sing it back to me. I won't hear you, but I'm sure that you all sounding amazing. It goes, you need it more than I do. Should we try all together? Here we go. And you need it more than I do. And then you need it more than me. Let's go together. You need it more than me. And then we repeat the first sentence again. You need it more than I do. And to finish, we have, don't you know? So we bring the thumb from here. Don't you know that kindness is for free? So it costs no money. Don't you know that kindness is for free? And singing, we do, don't you know that kindness is for free? Brilliant. Should we sing it all together once before we go? Let's do it. And you need it more than I do. You need it more than me. You need it more than I do. Don't you know that kindness is for free? Thank you. There you go. I hope it bothers you. for a very long time. Earworm.
Absolutely wonderful. And it's 3 o'clock, so it's time to say farewell to everybody. And thank you so much for joining us today. I hope it's been an uplifting experience and an informative experience. And please stay supporting with us along the way. Thank you very much.